get so mad, there's no controlling me. My thoughts get so bad, I'm like, oh God, here goes. I lost all feeling from my head to my toes. You said some shit that I can't let go, so just stay tuned for the rest of the show.
And some things, I think, especially where, you know, you are not only representing within the US, you've got a global presence. And I think the tricky thing for you and for us on both sides of the pond is that there are some things that just don't translate. We all speak English, but we don't all speak the same English. And so there are certain words that actually don't come over. And I know I've been corrected. The wonderful Leonard actually corrected me going back, I think 2 or 3 years on something I'd said. I'm now racking my brains to remember what it was that I'd said, but I've obviously obliterated it from my language, so I don't use it again. But it was something along the lines of, I think I'd said something, and he said, "Do you actually know what you just said? Do you know what that means? It's really offensive in the US." And I had no clue. I had no clue at all. And we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah, but then I guess the next question is, where does grace come in? Right? Like, and that's really what started to get it, is there was no grace. Like, even my follow-up, the very first thing that was said about my follow-up is, you know, this reeks of you just hate and don't like that the world is changing. There was nowhere in that was the sense. I'm sorry, but no one read that way. You know, or if you did, you just wanted to read it that way. Because I completely disagree with that. I mean, I'm an academic, the world changes. Like, that's the nature of, you know, the world, right? You know, it's the only constant change, right? And so where then do you where do you show the grace? Or was it a sense that, hey, no matter what I said, I'm going to hate you, and I hate you because I hate you, period, and it wouldn't matter? And that's the hard part of Twitter. Right? And that's the hard part of Twitter, because you get that.
Yeah.
And you know,
it's
and
the
that was,
immediacy of the responses as well. It's back at you. It's relentless, actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. And then, like, say with your example, you use something, I'm sure there was a sense of grace given, of going, okay, now I understand, shouldn't have done that, right? And you don't do it again. Like you said, you block it out. And I think that's the same thing, is once you understand, can't we all just be nicer to one another, even if it was right or wrong? And like, there was a lot of, you know, there were comments, and I agree, you know, the people that said, Joe, you have nothing to apologize for. You shouldn't have. You had no will intent. There's nothing to apologize. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have, but I'm going to, because I don't like to have hurt people, right? Who took it that way. And it doesn't hurt me to change my behavior, right? No. I'll just say next time, if instead of using the phrase, I'll say grow up, right? I mean, that's it, right?
I don't think there's anything lost in apologizing. Actually, you know, that it doesn't make you smaller, or, you know, whatever. I think it's really hard in a written format to get across sentiment. It's really hard. It's without getting gushy and flowery, which isn't really appropriate in that kind of format either, in that publication. But you know, where do we go from here then? So at what point do you move on from it, or you know, what happens? Because I've seen people get blocked over things. I've been blocked by people. Happy days. That's an issue with you if you're blocking me. That's not an issue with me, because I sleep fine at night. I try my best, and I'm constantly saying I'm always learning. You know, you cannot always know everything about everybody and understand everybody, but you can do your best to be kind. And sometimes when you're blocked, it almost kind of it deadens it, but you just think it's just pushed the issue somewhere else. It's still not addressing the issue. It would be more I think conducive to have an open conversation about it. And maybe, I don't know, you know, that when you look into somebody's eyes and you actually have the conversation, and you get a more of a feel of where they're at and what they really meant, that's when, you know, that's where you can maybe create some kind of change. So any plans to invite people to chat to you, or?
Yeah, it's already in the works. So yes,
Oh,
I've already
exciting.
invited some conversations there within our higher ed people who reached out to me. So it's just, you got to record them and have it come out. And I'm also thinking about ways that we can host, I don't want to say necessarily like DEI. I mean, I don't want to say put it in those terms, but have open conversations, especially within the HETMA circles and stuff like that. We've done our PRISM scholarship. We've done a lot of good, but now how can we build on it with other things? So, and that's kind of where I think we got, like, the two of us sitting here on this call, we're not going to solve the issue, right? We're not. But I think that
we can throw a pebble into the water, though.
Yeah. And I think going back to my, my follow-up article, how do we move forward? Just like you just said, let's have the conversations, and I think as we start to understand, I think as we start to understand each other as people, and this is the downside of Twitter, is you're an avatar and it's easy to throw back your emotion. Well, if we're sitting on a call like this, you're not going to do that, right? If you're sitting there with someone at the bar at ISE, you're not going to do that, right? But in Twitter, you will. And that's what's interesting. And I started looking at this. I posted that same initial article on all my platforms: Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. I posted on the back end HETMA channels. I posted it. The only place it caught controversy was Twitter. Everywhere else, it might have gotten a comment like, you shouldn't have done this, but it came at a professional manner. It was only Twitter that it was evil and that it was
To be fair, I only saw it on Twitter, even though I do have, connected with you and others. But I think if I've seen it one place, I'm not going to go looking for it in others.
Exactly. And
so,
we, and our little AV tweets, that's just
that's interesting. And I do wonder if sometimes, dare I say the phrase, familiarity builds contempt. Sometimes I think is it a case that because our community is quite well connected and feels that we know each other, that we feel able to say things more openly, and that maybe we wouldn't say if it was somebody else, maybe that's why that you don't see it in other forums, because you're also maybe mindful of other people who can see your posts. There's an element of are people that aware? Are they that aware? I'm not that aware, I don't think, but
I don't know. And I think everyone just always has their own intentions, right? And that's what you can't know, right? No. What their end game is, or where they're coming from, which I guess comes back around to why maybe especially on social platforms where we should be aware, you're going to have people that come at things at different ways. And all you really can do, and I'll tell you, it took me till the very end of that whole thread to finally come to terms with I'm good with who I am. I knew what my intentions were, and my apology was sincere, regardless if once it got to where it was a running circle around that, that's where it had to end.
And in terms of coming back to the message of the core message of your article, any comments you want to add on that? Because you're quite right. This sideline the something that actually was really a really nice article.
What's so funny is I think the final point is the same in both. Two very different things with the same point of, can't we just all support each other for the work that we're doing in this industry? And no matter what way it is, whether it's, and like I said, everyone, yes, am I a fanboy of Avixa? Everyone knows I am. Okay, I am. So what? I think they do great work. They've helped me in my career, and I wouldn't be here if it weren't for them. And so do I, blindly support them? Yeah, sure. Okay, fine. So what? Hate me for it. But that's where I sit there and go, gosh, like you said, there's real people behind the organization who, like what product they put out, yes or no, they have good intentions in what they're doing, period, right? It is an organization where we can, if you don't like something, join a committee and help change it, right?
And I was just going to come to the committee question, or tell them, You know, they're real
Yeah.
people. You can just tell them directly that, you know, this is, and they honestly, I know for fact that they like reaching out and they like getting the feedback, and they want to know what they can do better. They're so
Yes.
committed to improvement.
And
But as we've mentioned the C word, how dare you join the Women's Council? Was it the Women's? No, the Diversity
women's
Council.
and the
Oh,
diversity.
both.
I know, you know,
How
I
dare
guess
you?
I know.
And I don't know if you saw my tweet, because it was kind of hidden somewhere in the thread, but I think I just replied with, so, you know, these committees, I'm not a member of every committee, but that's because my life is so, you know, if I'm going to join a committee, I want to be part of something that I can actually give time to genuinely, not just be there and not, you know. So hopefully in the future, maybe I'll join more. These are not silos. They're not designed. The Diversity Council, to the best of my knowledge, is not a place that is only for people who consider themselves diverse. We're all, I nearly swore, we're all diverse. Every single one of us is diverse. And just because you live in a majority environment or a minority environment doesn't give you any rights over and above anybody else. We're all still learning. We're all still learning about each other, and it's a two-way street. And alongside that is to recognize that if we didn't have stale pale males like you,
I'm offended.
good. That was my intention. Or any of my dear friends, my old white guy friends, you can't have those conversations without having everybody around the table. And the whole point is about raising awareness, understanding what people are going through, so that we do see more panels are represented from all corners, and and we do start to instigate those positive changes, however small. You can't do it without representation from everywhere.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.